Hello, and bienvenidos to this episode of Voces, the official Hola at IBM podcast that brings our Hispanic and Latino communities of IBM together to share authentic, accessible, and informal conversations, amplifying critical leadership messages on culture, career, well-being, business, and technology. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of IBM.
Hi, this is the next episode for our Voces podcast, and we have a very special guest today. So we want to welcome Claudia Romo. Claudia Romo is the CEO of a nonprofit, and she will tell us all about. I don't want to spoil it and talk, and we just want to deep dive in. So, Claudia, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell the audience, what's your background, what has your career path look like, and where has the journey taken you?
Thank you so much for having me. I am a global mobilization expert. I'm a marketer for social causes, and I've been building brands all my life. I have worked in the last 25 years. Before moving to America 8 years ago, I was privileged enough to do that for the United Nations, for UNICEF, for the UN Refugee Agency, for the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria, the World Economic Forum, you name it. I'm pretty much doing the same, which is winning the hearts and minds of people and mobilizing partnerships that require, like a multi-stakeholder approach to big ambitions. Before that, I was a diplomat and a journalist. I lived pretty much representing Mexico, and then moved into the global arena in Switzerland, in France, in England. I speak 6 languages. I have 2 kids, and then I moved to America 8 years ago, and that was the first ever time that I heard that I was a Hispanic. So I lived my entire life as a happy Mexican, and I was like, what is this thing? And I realized that all the tricks and tips and everything that I've learned about how to mobilize and create global campaigns and change literally, opinions, behaviors, policies needed to be applied to my community. So I created World Human 5 years ago with the simple purpose to remind people just of that we are all human, that we belong to the same human family. And so World Human is devoted to advancing inclusion and equity as a means to achieving progress for all. And we're very, very focused on the Latino agenda under the framework of the Hispanic Star.
That's awesome. This is the first time that I'm speaking to someone that I also speak multiple languages, 7 languages, and have 2 kids. So it's just very, I don't hear very often somebody who speaks many languages. So I relate to you very much. That's great. So let's talk a little bit about inspiration. So we want to hear who or what has inspired you and, to do what you're doing for the Hispanic and the Latino community.
I think that my inspiration really comes from the data. As a marketer, pretty much my entire life, I've been trying to find ways in which to highlight the attributes of whatever I'm trying to, sell or highlight, like whether it's global poverty or maternal mortality. I've been trying actually to highlight those attributes to make sure that we can convey as many people donations and policies as possible. And what inspired me when I was preparing to move to America was the data. I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. I'm going to be part of the majority. I'm going to belong to this group called Hispanic that I have no idea who invented that word, but it looks amazing. And when I moved to America, like when I started living here, the reality was not as positive as the data. I didn't feel the majority. I didn't feel appreciated. I didn't feel that people really understood the incredible contributions of Latinos. And there was a reverse marketing problem that I faced, where we're powerful in paper, but we're very weak in reality. We're big in numbers, but we ourselves, we feel very small. So when I got married to an American 5 years ago, I was like, that's it, I'm staying. And that means that because of my decision, my daughter is going to make 50% of the salary, because Latinas are destined to make, the lowest salary of all the countries. So that's when I decided to take action and fix what I consider a perception and a representation problem that is coming from the lack of unity and pride of the Latino community.
That's incredible. And, since we were talking about the inspiration, what an inspiration for your daughter. I mean, to see her mom doing in the world and achieving what she's doing. It's just like, it's incredible. That's really great. That's good. Great. So talking about success, tell me what you think. What's your definition? What's your understanding? What success looks like to you?
Look, I mean, like I'm an optimist. Even more than an optimist. I'm a possibilistic because I think that it is possible. I have seen change in front of my eyes. You have seen change. All of us have seen change. The world is more malleable than what we think. We can kiss it into shape. We can kick it into shape. I've seen the world move. Like the first campaigns I started working on 25 years ago were anti-tobacco, and like at that time it was impossible to believe that the world would be like cigarette free. It was aspirational, and now like you have legislation change, social change, and even individual behavioral change, where people are recognizing that is bad for the planet, that's bad for you. And I think that we can do the same with racism, xenophobia, and discrimination. I want to live in a world where we're able to move the needle from tolerance to acceptance, where like there's laws that prohibit people to be disrespectful to each other, where you have like social like disapproval of practices that are ill to each other, and when we're very conscious of actually how do we treat each other with respect and with acceptance. And I think that at the personal level for the Latino community, success will look like when every Latino is being able to be seen and heard and valued.
Amazing, incredible. That's really good. So let's talk a little bit more about the nonprofit and the work that you guys do, right? So let's focus. So tell us a little bit about We Are All Human that you briefly started to mention at the beginning of the conversation. So what is We Are All Human? The foundation, and what's the mission? I mean, you kind of talk a little bit about it, but tell us more.
The World Human Foundation is a 501c3 set up in New York to try to advance diversity and inclusion as a mean to achieving equity and progress for all. So pretty much, I think that I just mentioned where the ambition and success looks like, but in reality, is that it is really hard. It is really hard to move any of the big pieces of the world if you're not including those segments of society that happen to be the ones that are left behind. So because I worked in frameworks like the Sustainable Development Goals, and and you and I know that in this world, ESG, sustainability, purpose are here to stay. And if you're not already like super on, I don't know, environment or gender or education, you're probably out of business as a company. And I know that diversity and inclusion will be the next, like the next flag. And I think that there's a lot to be said about like how to become more inclusive, how to recognize that we're all human, how to become more acceptance, particularly in a time in which generations, the younger generations, Gen Zs, alphas, they are not going to go and work in a place that doesn't match their values, where they understand that they can be themselves, all of themselves, and at every given point in time. And we Latinos were like 200%, even at 300% of a person, 100% American, 100% Latino, 100% Mexican, or LGBTQ, or something else. So we have to actually do a lot of work on not so much on the what or the why, but the how. How do we actually help mobilize, particularly corporations, to become more inclusive so that they can be a force for good and a force for growth, making it a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. I love hearing you talking about sustainability, the sustainable goals. Before I moved to the US 10 years ago, I was in Montreal working in the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. And it was really fascinating. And then from there, I came to New York. I was very surprised working in different Fortune 100s and seeing how little we were doing or paying attention to it. So I totally agree. It's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. The only thing is going to happen is to increase, and diversity and inclusion and equity is the next, and it's not going to go anywhere. So
And
yeah.
if I may, on that aspect, I think that we're in a great moment so that corporations don't have to backpedal as much. Like with sustainability, they were
Right.
like, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I think that it is a great moment to meet diversity and inclusion strategies with sustainability or ESG strategies, so that you don't have to start at the architecture level, double reporting or double strategizing. We want to make sure that what you're doing for the world, for sustainability, for like for ESGs, is incorporated, or diversity and inclusion is incorporated in that. And I think that that's where I get excited about seeing the worlds where I have sustainability and diversity collapse and becoming one at the early stages, so that, like, it makes it easier for change to happen.
Absolutely. And I dare to say that the company will not be able to be sustainable without having a very clear diversity and inclusion and equity strategy. Absolutely. Or embedded in the core of the business, what they do. They will not be sustainable long term. So yeah, totally agree. Okay. So tell me a little bit about what is the Hispanic Promise 2.0? Tell me about that.
Let me tell you about what is the Hispanic Promise 2.0 on the context of the partnership that we have with IBM. And, like, I feel very proud. If you permit, I'd like to share some slides with you that I prepared.
Absolutely.
Talking about this. I don't know whether you can tell me if you're seeing this. I hope that you are.
Yes.
But look, I worked with IBM in many of my other jobs in the past, and I know what an incredible difference it makes. And for us, as we're all human, as a new organization, taking into account all the 25 years of experience that I bring to the table, where, like, I know that we can do this. I know that diversity and inclusion are here to stay, but it is possible to do it early. What we started was in 2020, IBM was the first ever founding partner of the Hispanic Star. So I take a lot of pride in the partnership, in your leap of faith, in believing that diversity and inclusion is something that you wanted to invest in. It spoke about your commitment, but also in the trust that you have in organizations that want to accelerate the progress of Latinos like ours. We were about to launch, and then COVID happened. So we had to change completely the equation and the strategy that we had about, like, Hispanics to Hispanic Stars in Action for a recovery plan. So we started together a series of webinars of informing the Latino leadership about what was going on and how to pivot and how to actually change your strategies and how to survive if you were a small business, and how to, like, literally, it was, I think, that one of the most important moments for the Latino community to understand our situation, how we were disproportionately affected, how we were able to just, like, come back. And as a result of that, we were able to look at, okay, so how does the leadership is going to look like for the Latino community? What are the 7 strategic steps for Latino leaders now that everything has been taken away from us in a number of ways, right? Like with economic hardship that we had. So we hosted a jam session. I think that the largest ever jam session for Latino leaders, having more than 1,000 conversations about what does it mean to be a leader? What do we care about? How do we actually take the, how do we take the environments where we work and understand what does it mean for us to be a leader? What are the values that we care about? What do corporations need to learn about it? And that's why we created a white paper the year after, so that we can start establishing thought leadership and executive visibility, learning and guiding thousands of individuals within hundreds of organizations. We know that PTEC is a program that you created and that is so successful. When I was working at UNICEF, we supported PTEC so much because it's so valuable, and bringing it to the Latino community, having your generosity of giving it for free, like in Espanol, for thousands and thousands of people. That was really something that I think started making a difference for Latino children and for their schools. And the year after in 2022, we went and started conquering spaces. We went to the World Economic Forum, where we have been, like, as organizations, you and us, going for a long time, but there was never a gathering of Latinos of actually saying, like, we need to actually bring our agenda. So there was an agenda setting exercise, hosting the first ever Hispanic gathering. And then what we've been doing is turning the data that we have, the intelligence that we have, into how do we actually help people to, create impact and really to create systemic change. So we have a number of series that we have that will be feeding what you asked for. What is the Hispanic Promise? And so the Hispanic Promise is let me just show you a little bit of, like, the advancing the Hispanic leadership in a nutshell. The executive leadership, thought leadership, and executive visibility, the research and insights that we have, the advancing the leadership development of the community through STEM, and also PTEC. And so the Hispanic Promise is a corporate pledge, the first of a kind instrument that ever existed in the workplace. And Emma, if you permit, when I came to this, when I came to the realization of like, what are the instruments available for corporate America to demonstrate or to be guided about how to be Hispanic friendly, there was nothing. There's 50 pledges for women, like 100 for African American. There's like dozens of pledges for cat and pet shelter. There was nothing for Latinos, just for us to be, like in putting this into perspective. So we created the Hispanic Promise along with a number of Hispanic organizations like ASER and all the other organizations that work with corporate America. And the promise is a promise to hire, promote, retain, and celebrate Latinos in the workplace. The know-how, the how to do it. More than 300 companies have signed the Hispanic Promise. And we started realizing, and that was really hosted by IBM, on how do we actually really start putting meat into this, putting teeth into this? How do we actually start looking at the depth and the breadth? How do we measure? How do we put the goals and the indicators? What are the pillars that we want to do? So we have prepare, hire, promote, retain, celebrate, and buy and invest, and start looking at how do we framework this in a way that is almost like creating the sustainable development goals for diversity and inclusion. And we're very close to launching this new version of the Hispanic Promise that we call the Hispanic Promise 2.0, that it will be based on the sustainable development goals, matching diversity and inclusion with sustainability, allowing corporations to have big, hairy, audacious goals with pillars, activities, outcomes, best practices, directories, and so on. So pretty much, I think that, like the Hispanic Promise is an instrument that will be beneficial not only for IBM and corporate America, but for other minorities that probably will benefit from having an organized way to dealing with diversity and inclusion.
That's incredible. I was getting so excited seeing the mix of what you were presenting with the sustainable goals, and then mix them up with the amazing. This is really great. And at the end of the day, if what you cannot measure, you cannot manage, right? In a way. So it's really great that you develop this framework. And I hope that we can all leverage, especially partners, that'd be great. Good. Okay, and just like to see a little bit of like, I want to hear a little bit, what do you think that the challenges for our community? Which one? Well, you already talked a little bit about them, but what are the challenges our community have today, what you foresee for the future, and so on?
And just to say, on the Hispanic Promise, this is historic. I just don't know whether I'm putting it into enough perspective. When the Sustainable Development Goals were created, it was historic because it was the first ever time that 193 countries got together. And then thousands of companies got together. And then, like individuals, and then non-for-profits, and then everyone else. We're doing similar. This is the first ever time that corporate America sits down with the most important Latino organizations and around the table discuss the issues that we have. You hosted that. You hosted 3 days of the busiest people in America together in a locked room until we get it, or until we understand what is the deal. How do we actually understand how are we going to make Hispanics more, corporate America more Hispanic friendly and more investing in the community. This is historic, and I'm beyond grateful. And the partnership that I have with you, I hope that, pays credit and gratitude for the incredible, innovative, and historic nature of the piece that we're trying to build together. And about Latinos, look, just to level set, Latinos are the future. Hispanic progress is American progress. We are the people, 62 million people, 20% of the population today, 30% of the population tomorrow. By 2050, 1 in every 3 Americans will be Latinos. Hello, hello, hola. Hello, hello, hola. I mean, like as clearly as that. And we're the young, you're the youth, the youngest of all. Our average age is 29. That is a decade younger than the rest of the population. So we mean 4 decades of secular growth, because the most common age of Latinos is 19. The most common age of non-Latinos is 61. So just picture a 19-year-old with a 61-year-old, and then you tell me who are you going to hire? Who are you going to train? Who are you going to invest? Who's going to be your future consumer, right? And so Latinos are the people, are the youth, are the economic power, $2.8 trillion, which is, like if we would be a standalone economy, we would be the fifth largest country in the world. Our economy is growing faster than, like it's the third fastest economy in the world after China and India. So we're skyrocketing the economic, the competitiveness of America. We just need to make sure that we're prepared to become the workforce of America, that we're prepared with the opportunities to be able to, like achieve what we need. So I would say that Hispanic progress is American progress, and therefore it's imperative for everybody that we are investing in Hispanic progress. And the four main areas that we have to address of the challenges that we have systemically are education, gender, jobs, better jobs, and health. So better health, better education, better jobs, and better gender equality. If you put that together honestly, it's an agenda of upward mobility. And that is convenient for everybody. And that is the one thing that will unite us. All of us, all Latinos, really what unites us all is not the language, is not the country of origin, is not, is not whether you like salsa or bachata or religion or political affiliation. What really unifies us all is our desire to progress. So I am absolutely convinced that we're going to be able to address and see rapid change, because this is a win-win for everybody. And what we really need to be clear about is that what we need is Latino unity and Latino pride to be able to achieve Latino progress.
Okay, so that's great, Claudia. Super inspiring. I just felt like, let me just drop everything and go work and make a difference. So that's fantastic. Thanks. One question, one before the last. I want to see, how do you see, what are the main advantages that you see for our community and the corporate business world? How do you see that advantage working out?
This is where, like I get very excited, because all we want as Latinos is progress. And that is a great thing, because Hispanic progress is American progress. And there's absolutely no way that any industry, any corporation can grow or even survive without the Latino population, because how many we are, because how young we are, because of the size of our wallet, because of the size of our economy. So therefore, it is of self-interest for corporations to prioritize Latinos in your business strategies. If you don't have Latinos as part of your top 3 priorities of growth, you're probably going to be leaving money on the table. You're probably going to start looking at ways in which you're going to be course correcting, because of the talent war is increasingly high, because there's no way that, like Latinos, younger Latinos are coming out and taking their pride and elevating and lifting their masks, and they're going to be watching, where do I want to work? Is this an organization where I can be myself? Is this a product made by a company that allows and that invests in Latinos? So I think that the main advantage I see for our community with corporate America is the data. Latinos mean only 2 things: progress and growth. So any company that wants to grow will probably see Latinos as a competitive advantage. And I think that that's where Latinos and corporations meet. And that's why, for me, it's our main partner and our main ally. And individually, I think that every time more, not only Latinos are taking off their mask and embracing their Latinidad, but more and more allies are looking at the role that they can play in helping us to correct our distorted mirror, helping us to see ourselves as what we are: stars, positive contributors to the country, recognizing that America is made of stars and we are one of them.
Incredible. Great. And just finishing, just last question I want to see. So on what you were describing and what is the great advantage for corporations to be working with our community, I want to hear a little bit, if you can give us a sneak peek of what are the key initiatives that you're working on to guide companies and their diversity and inclusion efforts to move the needle with Latinos and the Hispanic community.
Well, And this is where I love the partnership with you guys. And again, like I look like a cheerleader and a broken record, but we have four instruments. And again, like as a global mobilization expert that has mobilized and seen mobilization at work, I know that these are the fundamental pieces that are going to be able for us to make systemic change and become a win-win-win. So we have four instruments. The first one is for the mobilization of corporate America, called Hispanic Promise. And the Hispanic Promise, we're going to make it more robust. We're going to make sure that 70% of the Fortune 500 in the next couple of years are signed and adopting and adapting the Hispanic Promise. We have the Hispanic Star, which is a brand and a platform to mobilize and for a platform to showcase the incredible contributions of Latinos to the country. So it is almost like the rainbow for the LGBTQ. And I want to make sure that that symbol, that brand, if you want, can help Latinos increase their self-regard, the social recognition, the unity of purpose that we need. But it's also a great way for companies to showcase that they care, to have a market solution, to go and say, like, I'm a Hispanic Star company. I care about my Hispanic Star community. Buy a product that has Hispanic Star because we're going to be investing and celebrating Latinos. So we have the Hispanic Promise, the Hispanic Star, and we have something called the Hispanic Star Impact Platform, or previously we called it the Hispanic Star Fund, where companies can support the needs of the community by matching your strategic goals with what the community needs. And so we're going to help in moderate and monitor the impact social programs that you have. And I think that with these, the last piece that Jesus Mantas from IBM is looking at is how do we make the Hispanic Promise also actionable so that we can incentivize the creation of 1 million jobs in the next 10 years. So we're going to have the Hispanic Promise Workforce Program, where companies are going to be able to pledge and say, like, I'll take interns, or I create internships, mentorships, scholarships, apprenticeships, contracts, so that companies can register their goals, their desires, but also, like, connect with the organizations that can partner with them to make those happen.
Thank you, Claudia. This is awesome. I'm going to sneak in a very quick question. Like, I just want to know, like, if you were going to give an advice to your younger you, like your 7-year-old you, what would you tell her? After seeing everything that you have done and live in different countries and accomplished, and how you understand the world now. So what advice would you give to a younger you of 7?
I would start by dreaming. When I was 7, I was just coming out of my parents had 3 kids and 2 of them died. And so I grew up in a microscope, pretty much, like thinking of people looking at me and say, like, is she gonna make it? Is she gonna make it? And then year after year, they were like, oh my gosh, she's making it. She's strong. As a fact, she's stronger than death. So when I was 7, I already had a sense that everything was possible. I was able to beat up death. So I was like, so it's not about the size of the dream. I think that particularly for Latinas in our household, we're made to calladita, te ves más bonita, and be like risk adverse, and don't take any risks, like don't speak too loud. And yeah. I would have probably given me the advice of just be yourself and go fly as far as you can a bit earlier, which is something I just did recently.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Claudia. I enjoyed it terribly, this conversation. I learned so much, and I hope that our audience can be as inspired and as thrilled as I am to have a conversation and feel blessed and proud of having you in our voces.
Sí, absolutamente. Muchísimas gracias. And many thanks for the partnership and for the opportunity.
Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Voces. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube and Spotify channels. You can find us as Voces so you don't miss any new episodes.